Hey, Beastista here, and welcome to week 6 of the WDC. Last week against Tyler, we successfully locked up the first overall seed. And so here for week 6, we are playing against Dr. Dave. And this is a fun match. However, it's not the most impactful match because I believe Dave is guaranteed not to make playoffs at this point, and I'm guaranteed to be first seed. So pretty much neither of our rankings will affect. However, obviously I'm going to try my best, and especially because I already kind of prepped for this match before I locked up first seed because Tyler's and my match got delayed. So here's the matchup, and they have a pretty scary team, including Hatterini, which is very good against my team since it actually underspeeds the entirety of my good Pokemon in Trick Room. They have King Gambit, which is very powerful generic power mon. They have Zoroark, which is quite annoying because you can never really guess which of the two mons it's going to be if they lead with it. And they also have some pretty big damage from like Searledge and Breloom, and very concerned about the possibility of Spore on Breloom. Especially because Breloom can outspeed my entire team, and so they just a fast Breloom or Spore can just kind of go Spore all my Pokemon, and so I definitely am a little bit concerned with that. So with that, I ended up bringing these Pokemon. So we bring Conkeldurr. So it's Guts for two reasons. One, Guts gives it the ability to make sure it can't be spored by Breloom. Also, Mach Punch with Guts boosted active one-shots most King Gambits. So those are kind of the big ideas with it. It is Terra Steel, just so it can take moves from Hatterene a little bit better, and just, Mach Punch, Drain Punch, and knock off as consistent damage. Next up, we have Eelektrost. It's Terra Scarf, or Choice Scarf with Terra Stellar, and the idea behind it is if, it can hopefully outspeed and one-shot a couple of their Pokemon, especially since they're not super incentives to be that fast. And so it has acrobatics to possibly one-shot a Breloom before it can Spore, and close combat to try to one-shot King Gambit. And if we bring Eelektrost, it's basically the focus of it with that. Next up, we have Marina. We have Cobra Cloak, so it can't be snarled, flinched, and, generically things like that. And it's Terra Grass to both be immune to Spore, but also get the Grass resist because they do have mons like the Breloom for good damage, and also Superior. They don't really have a resist to Water or Fairy, and so I just went with the stab moves. Went with Dazzling Gleam as like a nice spread option, Moonblast, and then Hydro Pump to get a pretty good chunk of damage. Next up, we have Rhyperior with Assault Vest. Because we have Assault Vest, we're able to pretty cleanly fit on Terra Blast to go with the Terra Flying. Terra Flying, I think, is a pretty good general defensive typing this week since they don't have any electric mons and they don't have any ice mons. And in addition, giving Terra Flying Terra Blast also gives good damage to grass mons and fighting mons, in which Rhyperior normally doesn't hit for super effective damage. In addition, we have the Heavy Slam to try to get the one-hit KO on Hatterene, and then the Assault Vest with enough special defensive bulk to take 2 hits from Hatterene was kind of the big goal with it. Next up, we have Sableye with double screens and Light Clay. The idea behind this is because they have very powerful Darkmon and Hatterene, which prevents targeted status moves. And so the idea with it is mainly just set up Sableye using Reflect and Light Clay. And then we have Quash, just occasional speed control, and then Foul Play as a way to do pretty good damage, which it does really great damage into Searledge and King Gambit. Even though it might be resisted, it's definitely the best damage. And then finally, we have Farigiraf, Armor Tail to prevent some Sucker Punches and other things like that from King Gambit. Foul Play for similar reasons from Sableye. And then we just have Trick Room and then Citrus Berry to make it a little bit more bulky. And so with that, let's get into the match. So here we are for our match, and they reveal that they are Terra Fairy Hatterene, Terra Dark Zoroark, Terra Ghost Volbeat, Terra Poison King Gambit, Terra Fire Blastoise, and Terra Ground Superior. At this point, I honestly just did not even remember that they had Superior on their team, and I'm surprised to see it. However, other than specifically Superior, which I honestly have a little bit lacking respect for, I think Primarina looks pretty good into all the other Pokemon on their team. And especially since they have Blastoise, which threatens possible fake out, and we have Covert Cloak to prevent the fake out. I definitely think I like the Primarina. I think that Sableye seems pretty reasonable to set up Reflect or Light Screen. And I definitely think that my strong physical attackers in the back make a lot of sense. The big question is do I want to actually have any sort of Trick Room stuff? And honestly, Farigiraf does not look the most exciting right now in this, based on the Pokemon I see. And I don't particularly stress too much out about, having the ability to prevent priority at this position. And so I decided to go with the Rhyperior because, like I said, I think that's going to be a really good and one of my better Terra options. And then I think Conkeldurr in the back makes a reasonable amount of sense. And with that, let's get into the game. So they end up leading Blastoise and Superior in front of my Sableye and Primarina. I immediately don't think Superior is actually Zoroark here. And so I do not think that they're going to go with a grass move. Obviously there's a chance I could Terra if they are in fact a normal Superior, but I think I decided to kind of go with the read that they are in fact Zoroark, and then I'm going to go for the max damage into it with a Moonblast into that and set up Light Screen to prevent damage from the two of these. It's also very safe because Fake Out doesn't really work onto my Blastoise. We set up Light Screen with that, and their Superior tricks my Sableye, gives me a Choice Scarf, which is awkward. However, this also guarantees that it is in fact Zoroark, which means I made the correct play. They go for the Muddy Water, which we see does very little damage to Primarina. We miss Sableye, but luckily for us, we're Covert Cloak, and we definitely never, we don't lose this, we don't have the accuracy drop, and we're able to get a large chunk of damage on Zoroark and do in fact show that it is Zoroark. So here I decided to go for a Foul Play into the Blastoise to do a pretty good amount of damage, and then the Dazzling Gleam to get to finish off the Zoroark and do a little bit of damage otherwise. Because we're locked into Scarf, I think Foul Play makes the most sense because this just guarantees that Sableye is going to be able to use useful moves. Sableye has a special attack drop, but because of my Covert Cloak, Primarina does not take a special attack drop, which is pretty good, and we're able to do a pretty reasonable chunk of damage with the Foul Play, and then Dazzling Gleam finishes up Zoroark and gets Blastoise below 50%. So we're in a pretty good position right here, and though Sableye can't use its other screen, it can do a pretty reasonable chunk of damage. So here they end up bringing out the Superior, and I don't really have a switch into a Leaf Storm, and so the big question is whether or not I can actually take a Leaf Storm, and I think that there's a non-zero chance that I can actually take it with Light Screen being up, and we just go for the double up into the Superior because Blastoise is honestly not concerning at all at this position. So they end up bringing Hatterene, revealing this as their last Pokemon, and the Leaf Storm connects into the Primarina, killing it. And I was a little surprised. I was expecting Primarina to be able to survive this with how bulky it is and the Light Screen being up. However, I believe that possibly the Life Orb was the difference here, and we're able to get a little bit of damage onto the Superior with a Foul Play. However, now we're just kind of stuck to bring in Rhyperior against a 4 times super effective Superior at this point. So obviously we need a Terra in order to make sure that we don't die to a Leaf Storm from this. And the big question is do I want to read a Superior Protect and go for the Heavy Slam into the Hatterene, or do I just want to kill the Superior? I think it makes sense to just try to kill the Superior. However, obviously if they just go for Protect, that could be in a pretty awkward position. So I decided to just go for the Heavy Slam and the Foul Play into the Superior to kind of spread my damage a little bit. So they end up tearing on their side, and they Terra Ground to the Superior. I'm guessing this is possibly to play around a Flying Terra Blast on my end, or maybe it was for something else, like, to take neutral damage to like a fire punch or something, or, or a heat, a heat crash or something like that. However, I Terra on my side. And so I should be able to take pretty much any attack from these two Pokemon because I am Assault Vest and Light Screen is up. And they go for a Terra Ground Terra Blast into my Rhyperior, which honestly I do not understand in the slightest. With it even if that they were reading a switch in, I don't really expect that to be the case. Later on, I found out that they misread my Terra sheet and they thought that my Rhyperior was Terra Still. And if my Rhyperior was in fact Terra Still, that would be a very smart play on their side. But given that I was Terra Flying, that was a very bad play on their end because it ended up completely being a useless move that I could completely punish them for. And so here we have a pretty clean foul play into Hatterene, which should kill it from 1 HP. And we can see that Leaf Storm I take reasonably well. I think I would have taken 2 Leaf Storms, but I definitely would be very low at this point. And obviously if they would have crit through the Light Screen, they definitely probably would have killed me with 2 Leaf Storms. So definitely got a little bit lucky there that they misread the Terra sheet. However, at this point, the game is definitely over because I have 3 Mons left to their 1, and they only have Blastoise, which honestly is not the best offensive threat into my team at this moment. And so they bring out Blastoise, which is a little bit under 50% health, and we can just go for a pretty easy Terra Blast, make sure we don't miss, and then a foul play, and the double up should definitely kill. They go for a Hydro Cannon, which is good to know. However, it does not even particularly get close to killing me there, and the double up is a very easy kill at this point. So with that, we have a pretty clean game 1 win. Obviously, I think a large aspect was my opponent misreading that Terra sheet and going for the very aggressive ground move into my Terra Flying Mon, where obviously if they just went for Leaf Storm, there's a solid chance that they might have been able to get there. But with that, let's get into game 2. So here we are for game 2. The big question is how do we want to adjust? And I don't know if there's any major adjustments I want to make. Like Electros would be cool to get some fast damage. However, they do have Scarf Zoroark, which could be very annoying. And in addition, Farigiraf could be reasonably useful, but it honestly did not seem like it would have been that useful in that last game. And so I kind of just feel like having the same lead and then possibly the same Pokemon on the back. I am very interested in the possibility of Electros. However, if they mix it up and bring like King Gambit and they have the Terra, it could be really awkward. I do like Rhyperior. I think Rhyperior is one of my better mons generically in this matchup. The Assault Vest plus, the strong physical attack definitely makes it scary. And I think it's just probably going to have to be the same exact 4 in the same exact order to try to run it back. And so with that, let's get into the game. So they end up leading Blastoise and King Gambit. And the big question is one of these Zoroark? And I think that there's a reasonable chance that either King Gambit or Blastoise or Zoroark. Actually, I'm expecting one of them to be Zoroark, and the big question is which of the two. I think that I'm not actually that concerned with Zoroark offensively, if that's the case, and so I decided to go for the fairly safe Reflect to play around the possibility of King Gambit, and I decided to go for the damage into King Gambit because I am more concerned with that, even if it's not Zoroark, and if it is Zoroark, I'm also more concerned of Zoroark than Blastoise, and so it's just kind of the safe targeting of the mon I care about more. We get the Reflect up, and Blastoise ends up tricking onto my Sableye, which means that is Zoroark and not the King Gambit. So the Reflect ended up being the correct play here, and we should be able to have Reflect up for pretty much the rest of the game in front of this King Gambit. And we sadly, however, activated its Defiant, giving it a +2 attack because of the random drop on my special attack, and they have Poison Jab, which I would take 2 of if they didn't get that Defiant boost. But with the Defiant boost, I'm in really bad shape. So I'm likely going to lose my Primarina here. So I decide I want to go with the attack of Quashing and Hydro Pumping into the Zoroark here, because from the Moonblast damage we saw in game 1, I think that Hydro Pump should kill, and we do in fact get the Quash off. This is a little bit risky because my Mon is Scarfed. However, we are able to get the Quash Hydro Pump off, and it does in fact get the 1-hit KO on the Zoroark, which I was very happy with. and we're probably going to lose Primarina here. However, I'm pretty happy to trade that for that. However, they end up actually just going for the Sableye, which I honestly was somewhat surprised with. Maybe they were expecting Zoroark to get the kill, and I think that's fair. It makes sense that they weren't expecting me to quash since I was locked into Scarf. And now we're in a really awkward position where Sableye cannot literally do anything because it's scarfed into Quash, and neither of these Pokemon can be targeted with Quash. And so the big question is who do I want to target? I decide I'm more concerned with King Gambit, especially since that +2 attack. And so I just go for the Hydro Pump into King Gambit to try to get as much damage as I can and switch out into the Rhyperior, because though Conkeldurr could be a reasonable switch in, it is highly risky given the fact that they could just go for Dazzling Gleam with the Hatterene here. We get the Rhyperior coming out, and they go for a Sucker Punch, which Primarina just survives, which is definitely real big there for me. And we get a Hydro Pump, which crits, which is massive, and they set up Trick Room. So the Trick Room being set up is definitely, definitely a mixed bag for us, because my team is slower my Rhyperior is slower than King Gambit because I have min speed. However, it is going to be outsped by Hatterene and Trick Room. And so the big question is, do I want to protect the Primarina or just go for a Dazzling Gleam? And I decide to go for the Protect to make sure it doesn't die this turn. I think, and just go for some damage into Terrafly. I can imagine I could Terrafly, but I don't think it's worth it. So I'm just gonna go for the Rock Slide, try to kill King Gambit with this Rock Slide, and break the Sash of Hatterene. They go for a Sucker Punch into Rhyperior, which does a massive chunk of damage, and they get a Psychic Terrain off, which prevents me from doing any priority moves, which can be very annoying for Conkeldurr in the back. And we are able to, luckily though, kill King Gambit with this. The crit here was a big thing that led me to do that. If I didn't get the crit there, I definitely would have had to do, like a high horsepower into King Gambit to try to get the kill there. But now we're in a pretty reasonable shape, because as long as this Rhyperior can take an Expanding Force from Hatterene, which is definitely questionable, I'm guaranteed to take a Dazzling Gleam from this range, but I think I should be able to take the Expanding Force, but I definitely have not done that Expanding Force damage calc because I was not expecting them to have Psychic Terrain up. And so I'm just hoping I survive this and go for the Heavy Slam into Hatterene. Hatterene is Terra Fairy, so this is guaranteed to kill Hatterene if I get it off. And so they bring out the Blastoise into the Terra Water. So technically here I found out that they're Terra Water, even though they were technically supposed to be Terra Fire. However, I don't think it really matters too much. We go for the Expanding Force. They end up killing my Primarina, and luckily my Rhyperior survives, and with the Rhyperior surviving, I get the Heavy Slam off and kill the Hatterene, and now we're in a pretty reasonable shape and hopefully being able to take out this Blastoise. I think that there was a good chance that I probably should have switched out my Primarina into Sableye, because I was expecting the Expanding Force and it was immune to the Expanding Force. However, there's a good chance Muddy Water would have killed both my Sableye and my Rhyperior with this turn. But at this point, if I did, I would have had Primarina in the back right now. So I think that was probably a misplay of not switching out the Sableye into the Sableye at the last turn. But here now, the big question is Sableye better as a light screen that can do nothing, or a foul plays? And I strongly consider light screen might just be better, because I think Conkeldurr has a reasonable chance to two-shot this Blastoise. However, I decide that I probably should just go for foul plays, because I don't know how much damage a Hydro Cannon with Terra Water is actually going to do into my Conkeldurr, and I just decide to go for the knockoff, even though it does a little bit less damage, to get rid of the possibility of like a regenerating item, or as we see, Mystical Water, which would do a little bit more damage. We get the foul play. It's very close. It's guaranteed to kill in 2 hits. They go for the Hydro Cannon and miss. That was a massive miss. I do not know how much damage that would have done. There's no light screen up, and it definitely had a chance to have killed there. Obviously, they would have not been able to move last turn, so we would have got one more foul play off, but I don't think the other foul play would have killed. And here they go for the Protect to stall out the last turn of Trick Room, which makes sense as we just go into attacks with both of these Pokemon. And so the big question here is, now that there is no more turns of Trick Room and that I'm burned, do I try to make the read of them going for the Hydro Cannon and protect my Conkeldurr, or do I not? And I decide that because it's the last turn of terrain and Blastoise looks low enough in which Mach Punch might be able to get the kill, I decide to just go for the Protect on Conkeldurr, stalling out the last turn of Psychic Terrain, hoping Mach Punch kills, and then obviously if they do go for the Hydro Cannon, I could just kill with a 2 Foul Blaze. And they go for the Muddy Water, so I guess play around my Reflect technically. Sableye dies, which means that if I wouldn't have protected, I actually would have gotten the win this turn if I just went for a Drain Punch. However, at this point, we just need to hope that Mach Punch does kill. And I think a Guts boosted Mach Punch kills this Blastoise based on how much Knockoff did, since Knockoff did over 50%. And we get the Mach Punch and it gets the clean kill. And with that, we successfully win. I definitely got pretty lucky. I got the big Hydro Pump crit. I had that big Hydro Cannon miss. So definitely feel like game 2 probably could have gone to Dr. Dave, and it might have been a game 3. It could have been an interesting game 3, but luckily for me, I got fairly lucky and I'm able to finish the regular season 6-0, and we shall see how this playoffs work. Is I actually going to steal a Pokemon, so there's a chance I might try to steal this Hatterene from Dr. Dave specifically, but we shall see what I end up taking. But with that, hopefully y'all enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next time.